All right. Helen, welcome to the Black Tower. Oh, why is this not working?
There we go. It takes
Helen,
a few minutes for YouTube to catch up.
why is this not working?
There we go.
All right. So, Helen, welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, Sorcerer Armada Soul. Sorcery after surgery. What do you do? Well, I'll tell you what you do. The first thing you do is you get a hold of one of the badass sorcerers you know, and that would be my sister Sorcerer Renarius. And you talk her into doing this shit late at night and hope that she's game for it.
Always. Oh man, it's good to see you back, brother. It's been a little while.
Oh man, yeah, I'll tell you what though, it's scared the shit out of me. The whole process. I wasn't worried about surgery or any of that stuff. And when I went in, they told me that oh, you're gonna be weight bearing. Yeah, these fuckers didn't take into account that I've had hardware in my body for 25 years. Imagine my shock when I come out of surgery and the anesthesia wears off, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, by the way, do not put any weight." And I'm like, "How long is this?" They're like, "3 months." I'm like, "Oh, you son of a bitch!"
Damn.
Yeah,
That's
so
rough, man.
yeah, and then I about fucked myself up here at the house. That was fun, and it's well, I didn't fuck myself up. Muscle when they cut through it through nerves, tendons, shit like this. Uh, what happened is it had about a week and a half to heal, and every now and then my leg would jerk. I didn't think a thing about it, and I was going and I was getting my leg up on the couch so that I could sleep on my couch, and all of a sudden that muscle clenched, and when it did, it just took and twisted,
Mm.
and I heard
Oh
cracking of
no,
metal and bone and pain.
that sucks.
I really did, and so
Oh,
what did I do? So my wife, she's like, we need to, we need to call the hospital or something, come get you, blah blah blah. I'm like, fuck that. I got in a chair when I could get the pain settled down. The first thing I did was went to calling on the archangel Raphael. I was like, oh, great and mighty surgeon of the heavens, I need you, man, because I am not going back in the hospital. And for some reason, the healing has been faster. So for whatever healing that was happening in the first 2 weeks, the last 5 days is like seriously, there is something with the Archangel Raphael being a physician spirit, and that was pretty intense. But that's not why we're here tonight. We're not here to talk about my stupid shit. Uh, we, although I'm gonna tell you what, I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad everything's gonna be. It will be easing off. Healing just takes time. It's something I've got to sit back and do, and I'm not used to sitting back and letting anybody wait on me. I do everything myself, and so I've been having to learn to allow my wife to do nice, kind things besides just bring me a cup of coffee every now and then. She's pretty much had to been there like lose so much sleep and all this other stuff, and the thing is that I'm lucky in the sense that I have a great wife who she adores the ground I walk on. So, she's right there with me.
mm.
I can be a complete and total fucking dick because of pain. And she's sitting there and she'll just be like, when you're done growling. And
Well, you're a lucky man. It's good to have someone that can be there because it sounds like this is quite a recovery process, and kind
well,
of.
this whole thing is because of her. She's the one that talked me into like actually going and finding out what was wrong with me. And in line with the subject tonight of authenticity and magic that you came up with that we're going to be discussing. So for any viewers out there, don't worry, we're not going to spend this whole time talking about my dumbass and surgeries. We're going to be getting on the subject of authenticity and magic. How do we get there? How do we know if we're already there? And a few other thoughts along those lines as me and the talented and very beautiful sister of mine, Sorcia Renarius. Uh, so, but getting on that so that I can get it over with. So she talked me into this, and 2 years ago, well, 2.5 years ago, when we moved into this place, I'm like, I'm ready to get everything done that we should have been taken care of. You know, be the sorcerer. Stay on top of everything. And she's
Hmm.
like, do you realize that means your medical problem too? And we went like a year, not even knowing it was my hip. And so when we found this out, and it was the process of getting the medical for it and all this other stuff, and finding a good doctor for it. She was right there with me because you can ask her. As soon as I got to the doctor's office, I'm like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready to go home. And she's like, no, 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 no. Wait, no, no. You're gonna sit here. You're gonna see the doctor. You're gonna listen to whatever the fuck they have to say. I know you hate doctors, but you're gonna do this. And it's easier for me to go outside and decide I'm gonna let you whoop my ass than it is for me to see doctors because I don't trust them. I never have. I never will. Uh, the body heals its fucking self. Spirit can heal body. But apparently the problem I
Hmm.
was having is that wasn't working. And, I had to go the medical route. And so during this whole thing, it's been really trying. And I'm being silly when I'm saying I've been an asshole, but I've been a real asshole. So, but she's been right there with me through this. I've got a lot of brothers and sisters on here on Facebook and stuff. They've sent me talisman, sigil seals that have done healing spell work that have gone completely out of their way to help me get this accomplished, and then for the recovery. And for any of you out there that's actually watching this, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and my soul. Thank you. I know my wife appreciates it. Uh, there are times when in magic and reality, when a lot of it you're like, how do I know that the magic's working? You know, and I can tell you this right now. I've only been out of surgery 18 days, and for the last 2 days, I've been able to stand on my own without crutches. So you really have no
Wow.
idea how powerful the magic that you guys have been sending my way is, and I appreciate it.
That's one thing I love about the community. It's like if you're out here and you're connecting with people, you can share, both the good times and the hard times with each other. And you know what? It's heartening to see people kind of coming together and looking out for each other, sending good juju each other's way and, healing and just that intention. I think that's really like that's nice. It's like, this built in, you know, like layer of protection that we all have when we engage in community. I mean, even though a lot of us, we've never met, you know, we're out here, in cyberspace doing our thing, but it is a real connection. It is like an authentic, tangible thing, I think. And then, and here's the evidence. It's like when you're doing things, we do things for and with each other. And I think that's a good thing. And I'm glad that that is the culture that we have out here and that we continue to create.
When you first brought up the idea of authenticity and magic being, when we were sitting there discussing, what could we do a live stream on? I like to think of the word that automatically went to my head was authentic, being real. Uh, Anybody who is my friend on Facebook, they know for a matter of fact that if they message me, I message right back. I'm a very polite, very honest guy, good or bad. I always have time to respond to anybody. Even people that have no idea why they're whispering me, they're not on my friends list, and I'm like, okay. If they took time to ask me something, I'm going to respond. If they sit down and they video chat with me, the first thing they realize, I'm not a fake motherfucker. What you see is what you get. You like it, you don't like it. I'm your cup of tea. I'm not your cup of tea. But the thing is that I'm just who I am, and in that sense and respect, a lot of the people that I do know personally, they're all the exact same way. Not necessarily like me or anything like that, but I'm saying they're real. They're authentic. What you see is what you get. It's one of the prime reasons why I love you to death, sister. Because I mean, you got that whole. This is me. you may have that beast underneath the mask, that when you let that mask slip, because somebody's pissed you off, you gotta let them know it. But that's also being real. That's also being authentic. You know.
Yeah, I mean, being able to like embrace the different, sides of ourselves, the different sides of each other. I hate like the I know this sounds probably kind of mean, but like I hate the shiny happy people that are just like all unicorns and rainbows, and there's nothing wrong with being like a light, chirpy, happy person. But if it's authentic, then that's awesome, man. They're rocking it. That's cool for them. But it's when it's like they feel like that's what they need to be because it's like a forced thing. Then it's just I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I'd rather have somebody be dark and twisty and real than somebody who is like fake happy all the time.
Yeah, I used to have a 90% of the time. If you're dealing with me, I'm an upbeat guy. I'm the glass half full. I am never the glass half empty. Period. End of story. I don't care if I'm on a bad hair day. You can ask anybody who knows me in real life. I have my life experiences. It shouldn't be that way. My life experiences. I should be one of the most just dreading waking up. Just the sunset would scare the shit out of me because just a new day to get fucked. Uh, so forth and so on. But I learned a long time ago. You know, life's not fair. Life is not fair. But second off, you have a choice. You having a choice. You have a choice whether or not you're gonna let that shit, drop kick in your dick, or whether you're gonna get up and just fucking run with it, full tilt boogie. You gotta grab the bull by the horns. You got to. You know, uh, there are times when I don't have the energy to drive the momentum or nothing, and it's when I like to say, it's head to the ground. And I don't mean like a ostrich buries its head in the sand. No, I'm talking about a plow. Like I literally, even if I'm dragging myself, it's still full forward, still full forward. Because one of the most important lessons I ever learned in sorcery was the power of the will, and the power of
Yeah.
the will is instrumental in your authentic self, and creating your authentic self, discovering the authentic self that is not based on the nature or nurture, but that just is from either your incarnation or whatever.
Yeah, looking at, how people approach magic, it's usually like I mean, there's different ways, but the one that I see a lot, people, hey, they'll delve into a system, they'll path work, and that's good. I think everybody should experience like, path working a system, any system, just for the experience of like going through these different levels, the gnosis you get, the things you learn. Like there's definitely some benefit to that. Um, but a lot of people approach it in a way that's so mechanical. Like they just say, okay, square one. This is kind of like things that I need to know. And then, okay, boom, on to the next. But it lacks any real depth. It lacks any real definition because it's like a hollow definition. It's like if you are doing it because, somebody somewhere said this is how it's done, that's not good enough. And I don't think that we should settle for that. I think that we should expand ourselves by, you know, being willing to like, learn things from different systems, whatever, feels right, whatever is workable and useful. But ultimately, the magician should make it their own. We should be not just following other paths, we have to carve our own path. It is so important to do that because that is how we evolve. That is how we evolve. That is how we, you know, like push forth magic because otherwise it's like we're playing in the past. And while there's nothing wrong with honoring the past, honoring you know entities of old, and connecting with them, I mean that can be meaningful. That absolutely can hold a lot of meaning for people. But at the end of the day, when you take away the masks, when you take away the structure of how it is packaged, you look at like the underlying things, And at the end of the day, it really is, the magician and the will, and then everything else. And being able to then, you can plug into any system and find what you need, and work within it. But again, it has to connect with a magician in a way that is meaningful, that is authentic, that can then be, you know, changed. And I think a lot of people are afraid of changing things, are afraid of, I see a lot of questions. Okay. I have people ask me all kinds of things. Or, I'll be scrolling through my feed and I'll see people, talking about different experiences, magically, which is good. But a lot of people are afraid to experiment magically because they're thinking, oh God, if I do this sigil wrong, it's going to like blow up the universe. Or if I, mix this and this and we're going to have problems. Well, who says? You know, don't we make our own rules as magicians? I mean, yeah, there are certain, fundamental things that are kind of like rules that underlie things, but I still think that we have so much leeway as magicians. We have to be willing to fail. We have to be willing to get out there and make epic fucking mistakes. If you're going to make a mistake, let it be a good one, because there's probably going to be a good lesson, behind it. Um, I always think, go big or go home.
Yeah, that last part, we were talking earlier, it's about a couple months back I started working through these books and I didn't quite like the way the system had them put. I mean, I understand doing things in order. I get that. But when it comes to what I put here in my belief system and my structure, uh, where I put it, how I put it is very fucking important. There is no, in the words there, where I am, there is no other God where I am, and you've got to reach that state in sorcery and the type of magics that I work. Um, you can have other gods about you, and you can call upon them, and you can work with them, so forth and so on, and you can have all the respect in the world. But the thing is you can't look at them as they're the supreme potentate. Uh, you can't. You have to look at yourself that way. And this all has to do with the path that you've chosen to walk magically. But for those of us who walk the path of self deification or sorcery or self in any way, shape, form, or fashion, when you pick up a book or you pick up a system and you start going through it, and it tells you that uh, well, these are the angels and these are the demons of the system. Well, you can use that. You can be like, okay, well, according to this system, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, so to speak. But when it all comes down to it, you have to have working knowledge of them personally, and you have to decide for yourself. You have to decide for yourself. How much of that shit are you actually taking in and putting your faith into? And with a particular system that I'm working with, I was having the exact same problem. And about a week before I went into surgery, I had started having the last little bit of inkling of an idea of how to work the system without working it like it's described. And I was just like, oh well, it's too close to my surgery. I'm gonna put all my intention and all my energy into the surgery and recovery and all this other stuff. And when I come out on the other side, I'll figure all this out. And it was interesting that when I hurt myself and had to call upon Raphael to do some serious fucking healing, uh, it was funny that during the episodes of pain washing over me, with it was like a floodgate of gnosis. And the gnosis was just like, how dare you? You know, you cannot walk this path if you are not willing to stand on your own two legs. If you yourself are not willing to become this power, if you're not willing to harness, control, focus, direct it, it's not going to be harnessed, focused, or directed. It's going to sit there. And I have so many systems that I've borrowed from and made into my own, and it's just a conglomerate, but it's mine. It's my system. It's my way. And what I was trying to do was be non-authentic. I was, trying to, like kind of, borrow heavily on this other guy's fucking belief system. Yeah, I can't do that when they say that you have to guard the gates. Some of what they're talking about is the gates of your own fucking mind. You know,
Exactly.
that it's no different than a Satanist that keeps going back to Christianity to Satanism, back to Christianity, back to Satanism. I don't care if they look at them as if they're right hand, left hand, and so it becomes like an occult thing with them. The thing is that when it tells you that you can neither drink of the cup of the angels and of the demons, what they're saying isn't that you can't mess with both, that you can't work with both. But what it is saying is that inside your belief system, inside your structure of self, you cannot have division. You cannot. And and that was a really harsh lesson for me to learn. Uh, but the thing is that as soon as it did, it was like all the pieces I needed to fill in the gaps came right with it. Uh, being able to put this stuff together and be able to fit it into my own day to day life, uh, it's actually enhanced my life. It's enhanced my energy, my mood, and I would love to say it was because I stood up and did ritual. Yeah, I can't do that. Uh, haven't called quarters and nothing like that. But I don't have to with the types of things that I work with because when you're talking about authenticity and magic, a lot of the times it's easier to say, oh, well, this book works. It has great magic in it. And somebody else goes, magic in that book don't work. I don't care what book it is. I'm just using it as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to run across that. But what's going to happen is that when you're running across that, it's not necessarily what's right for one or what's right for another. It's can you pick up that book that is supposed to do something, and can you make it do what you want it to do? Not what it was designed to do, not what it was created to do. Can you get it to do what you need it to do? And that all comes back to knowing yourself and so forth. And that is part of the authentic self and the authenticity and magic. There is no such thing as a right path, a wrong path, a right way of doing, a wrong way of doing. It's like a lot of the times I may be a positive guy, and in my magic you can tell. But in some of my work, it was like a good 80% of them. When I start a summoning or a calling, there you're not seeing rainbows flying out my ass. You know, you're hearing me, gutturally call like I'm growling some of the names. I am really
Mm-hmm.
getting into it, and I am hitting them at their particular density or their vibrational level, and drawing them forth within me. And a lot of the times when I do that, I've had people that won't come near my house for like 2 to 3 days. And they're like, I don't know why, but it's got like a really bad feel, blah blah blah. As soon as you step in my house, you feel safe as shit. You know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it is so annoying to have to justify anything you fucking do. Like why do we have to use terms like fluffy or light or dark or any of this other shit? Because society tries to impede upon us that we have to be either this or this, and that if we're this, we're not this. And these motherfuckers don't know shit. You know, were they you the day you were born? Have they gone through a single fucking moment in your fucking life as you? No, they have not. So what the fuck? You know, and that's part of being authentic is you've got to hold on to that anger. You've got to hold on to that. You can't. Somebody else ain't gonna live your fucking life for you. You better fucking live it yourself.
Exactly. And, I think being able to look at, you know, like letting go of the need to, like give any fucks about what other people think, about, what you really believe. Like, because, for me, I have a lot of beliefs. Like if I were to, you know, present them, they seem completely contradictory. They will seem like completely like, well, that can't be true. If you believe this to be true, then logically you cannot then believe for this to be true because they're opposing somehow. I don't accept that because okay, that may be true for you to see it as conflicting or opposing, you know, but that's not necessarily like my paradigm. In my paradigm, I can have seemingly conflicting views that really like can coexist at the same time in the same realm together, and I reconcile those things, whether it's within myself, out of myself, you know um I don't let it hang me up, and that's the thing. And so I feel like we can be open to any potential if we can accept that, anything can be true, anything could be permitted. um when we start limiting ourselves, then we start, yes, it may give us a sense of identity or definition. But again, I feel like we have to be willing to adapt. We have to be willing to evolve. And sometimes that means changing your beliefs. Sometimes, ideas are easier to change than beliefs. Belief is something that is so like deeply embedded. It can be challenging to change a deeply held or deeply loved belief. We get attached to our beliefs, the need to, we have to have something to believe in because we sometimes feel so, lost and alone in the world. And yes, like there is that need. We want to believe in something, but we have to be willing to change those beliefs to be able to grow, because I have been challenged. There are things that I believe to be completely true, and I had to sacrifice that. I had to sacrifice that. And a lot of times, sacrificing beliefs is, a huge sacrifice because it fucks with our sense of self identity, our self worth sometimes, depending on how much value and belief we have invested in those things. Um, so when we can like give ourselves permission to change our beliefs, even things that we have like staunchly defined ourselves as, we'll be more free as people, as magicians, and we'll be more adaptable. And I think that's something that, we it's it could be behoove us to be adaptable.
When I call you one of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life, yes, you are physically beautiful. You really are. Girl, your mind, your spirit, and just your ability to fucking stand your own fucking ground, that is fucking beautiful. When we don't allow things and we don't allow people to tell us what we are and are not, then we've truly figured out who we are. Uh, but let's stay on subject just a minute. But the biggest thing that I've learned in this last week, and it really throws me, but it's something that I can attest to, and it's something that I work with, is being immutable, being able to be dissolved and transformed and transmuted, and then to take a form, and then for that to go away. The you know Unless we when you think about immortal, when you think about eternity, things of this nature, you're talking about things that are coming from a cyclical nature. First off,
Hmm.
and then second off, you're dealing with something that is outside of that whole structure. It's between the angles, and the most interesting thing that, like I was saying, that I've learned this week is that to become formless, to remain formless. Uh, for example, I have no idea why. I have I don't know who I would have pissed off, why I would have pissed them off. I don't know why anybody would try to fucking take me out. But I came under attack probably the first week out of surgery, And at first, I didn't want to believe it. Because I just thought it was something else. But when you start having dreams of where you're pulling stuff from inside your mouth, where they've sealed your mouth magically, dreams give away lots of things, especially if you're connected. Uh, you know, and so the very first thing I had to contend with, besides being in pain and not being able to move or anything, was the fact that I'm being magically attacked, and I'm like, what the fuck? Because I'm trying to figure this one out. I'm like, I make friends wherever I go. The enemies I have, they're so few and far in between, it's not even funny. I know it's not about jealousy because it's not like I got anything that's all that fucking great, outside of what anybody else could fucking have or does have. You know, I have what I need, and that's good enough for me. I've never asked for more. And when I do ask for more, it's because I have something in particular I'm looking for. But the thing is that, and that's when the lesson of formless came into being. That's when it dawned. That's when I remembered. You have to let go of the persona. Like, for example, I go by the sorcerer Armand Soul. I go by a lot of fucking things. Uh, but the thing is I also go by he of no name, because that is my reminder to remain, fluid, to remain formless, because you've got to have that Sathian form, that Nyarlathotep form, whatever you want to call it. It's a chthonic state of being, or a chthonic body, if you will. It's where it makes no sense what you're looking at. And as soon as I did this, as soon as I took on, as soon as I was working through the chthonic forms, and all of a sudden I knew exactly, like right off the bat, I knew two of the three people attacking me and why they were attacking me. And then it was just a few days later, I realized there was somebody else online that was attacking me. And I was like, what the hell? And this person had been playing buddy with me, and I didn't know this. I wondered why all of a sudden they were talking to me, but we never had downside. And come to find out, it was just straight up because they think they're bigger than their fucking britches. And if they want a war, bitches, even on my worst goddamn day, I will take your motherfucking head off. And it's sad that we have to be this way, but in this life, we're going to catch people who are, necessarily because you didn't give them enough attention, because you didn't make them feel fucking special butterflies, that that they deserve this and they deserve that. And I'm like, dude, first off, you get what you give. If you don't create it your fucking self, don't expect it to be given to you, because it's not. There are times in life when mercy is given to us. There are times when it's shown to us. There are times when grace is poured upon us, as if the very fucking heavens love us and adore us. And then there's times, and I know good and damn well you know what I'm about to say next. There's also those times when it just gets swept away like fucking flood water. Just takes it all from you. But whatever's taken from you, fuck, man, it gives it back like 10 times over. Most of what you lost was shit you really didn't need. And it was shit that the universe was trying to tell you the whole fucking time. Hey, you don't need this. You don't need this. You gotta let it go. And that comes back.
It still may be painful, but ultimately, yeah, it really is about your growth, your ascent. And there's a lot of things that we love to hang on to, but that may be holding us back. And it may just need to like get out of our life for a season. It doesn't necessarily have to be forever, but it just means right there in that moment, it's unneeded, or you need to be able to like grow some balls and deal with life without it for a while. And it's hard, man. It can be really fucking hard and traumatic for people, but ultimately it's what they need on a deeper level.
Yeah. I don't sit around whining. That's a lot of my problem. I don't feel sorry for myself. So if you ever catch me where it seems like I don't have pity for you because you're living in a drama filled world, you know, it's like I put on I think it was Michael Williams that posted this thing where he was like, he's talking about something about giving a fuck. It's like motherfuckers, I'm not acting, and I had
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
reshare
saw that.
that.
I saw that.
I
I gave
had
it
to
a like.
reshare that because honestly, there's very few people who understand that when you're talking to me, I hear you. I really do. But don't ask me for my opinion because I don't have one because I don't give a fuck. Because unless and that sounds way worse than what it is. Uh, I personally I can't stand to see somebody kicked. I see no point in that. Cruelty, unnecessary cruelty is just, dude, what the fuck? There are certain things that'll set me off. But just a general basis, if you were to ask me what I'm thinking, I'm sitting there going, I was thinking about going and getting some coffee, not because I'm simple minded and don't think, but because my mind is my temple. I keep it pretty clear and pretty clean, and and that includes having opinions on people. But it's but sometimes I've been taken to be an asshole because I don't care what they're. Okay, so you're into save the whales. Cool. Somebody's got to care to save the whales. All this, that, and the other. Or whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're bringing this stuff up, and they want me to become political or I think the way who was his name? There's some guy on YouTube. I used to listen to him all the time. Freighter X. He does that
Mm-hmm.
whole polarized. He talks about polarization and he talks about depolarization and so forth and so on. And he talks about polarized people. And and I agreed with a lot of the stuff that I've heard him talk about concerning it. But I'm more neutral than Swiss, unless you impede on me and my well being. You fuck with me, it's just that's a whole other story. Then I will become opinionated, but not until then. But it's amazing at the people that want to get you involved. Oh, well, such and such was talking about me, and I'm sitting there going, okay, what did you say to them? That's not what they want to hear.
No, no, no. They want to know that you're like validating their stance. And no, no, granted, okay, like when it comes to like saving the planet, yeah, I think like, like if we want to have a place to live, like we should maybe like think about, like the bigger picture. Yeah. But when it comes to like the polarized version of it, where it becomes like this, like almost like a rabid, fundamental, like crazy, crazy glazed over eyes, like, we got to do it this way. It's like people, again, that comes back to needing a sense of self and definition. People define themselves by like what they do, what they're into, to the point that if you don't acknowledge it, then somehow it's a very, very fucking personal thing for people. Like they take it like as a personal slight against themselves, against God, against, a bigger thing when really,
Like you're not
they
taking
should
their
be,
side.
yeah, it's like they should be minding their business. It doesn't mean that you can't be an activist. I mean, I've done my share of social activist activities, like all kinds of things. So it's like I've been there. I've put my fucking money where my mouth is, and I've gone out and done things to affect change locally. And that's the thing. It's like, you got to start, somewhere, wherever it is, but like you don't necessarily have a right to like demand that other people like jump on the bandwagon, because you know what, maybe they want to be on a different bandwagon. It doesn't mean that they don't care about saving the whales and doing it, but you know what, there might just be more pressing things in their life that like they're putting their energy someplace else. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that they fucking hate whales and like club baby seals. It just means that they like their will and their purpose might be a little bit different. And it doesn't mean that they're stopping you from going out and doing whatever it is that gives you joy. But people tend to get so fucking butthurt and they take it personally, and they're like, well, if you're not, with me, you're fully against me. And you must be against this if you're not willing to do it the way that I think you should. And that's just manipulative bullshit.
I
So,
agree.
I think we all have to kind of pick, it's like, we all have our lives, man. We all have things that we hold dear. We all have different, political, spiritual beliefs that sometimes clash, and that's fine and dandy, man. But like, we all have to do what we feel compelled to do, what we feel, is worthy of our attention, what we feel is, what we want to be promoting, what we want to be putting our time into. Because that's the one fucking thing that like is the most precious currency we have is our time and our attention. And how do we spend that? Do we waste it? Nobody gets to tell you how you spend your most precious commodity, your time, your energy, your focus.
You know, I know I talk a lot about past and and my magical upcoming and and all this, that, and the other. But these are things that crafted me, that molded me, that made me the man that sits here at the screen, the person who calls himself a brother to fucking 100 people at least or more. I'm just taking a wild stab in the dark there. I don't really know. It's not a word I throw around lightly. Uh, I consider people brothers and sisters up until they show themselves not to be a brother or a sister. And that's just how it is. I'll always lead with the right foot, and not because that's the way I was fucking raised, because I had to choose a long time ago, what I was going to hold on to and what I was going to let go of. But in the Temple of the Vampire, uh, back when I was I was going to be one of the youngest house leaders. I was going to start my own house within the Temple of the Vampire, and I was going to be one of the youngest that ever did that. And at the time, it didn't work out. But and I'll get to that some other time. But at that particular point, one of the workings that I was working with was the creed, and it goes, as we unleash the power to change ourselves, we unleash the power to change the world. Why do you think you get on here and you call one another brother or sister? Why do you think you get on here and you light a candle for somebody that's fucking sick, or send them a sigil or a talisman to get over a surgery or recovery? Why do you think you send Christmas presents or just gifts or just whatever? Why do you think you do these things? Because we are, we're not just building a community here, and but we're building family, we're building bonds, we're building a fucking aura, and everybody's charging it and super empowering it and connected together. Holy shit, man! If you're within that bubble, fuck, man, can't nothing get through that. When they talk about safety in numbers, I mean, look at wildlife. They do the same damn thing. Everything from the deer to the wolves to the lions. Even the elephants, who you're sitting there going, what the fuck would try to take out a, a gray elephant? What the fuck? Because that's a big fucking elephant. But there are things that would try to harm it, or try to get the weaker ones, all this other shit. Because, whether you intentionally, whether you put the intention out there to do so, we're all connected, each and every single one of us. But when we come together and we actually decide, we're going to lend our strength to one another and all this other shit, then it becomes imperative that the motherfuckers who are sitting there taking advantage of that are also making sure that, no matter how small a thing that they're able to do, whether it's reshare a post, somebody trying to sell their service, or, help somebody just out of nowhere. Just fucking help them just because you can, because you have the magical skill and ability. Whatever. We may be magical, and we may be magical mountains, and we may be gods and goddesses, and we may be this, and we may be that. But at the end, we got to remember one thing. And when and it comes back to that formless. You go back to the void. That's its return point. When they talk about in the ancient days, woman was the altar. They weren't necessarily talking about something physical, sexual. They were talking about she was the gateway. She was, where the power was imprinted upon to create. And so, and then you start working with goddess, or the feminine energies, or whatever the different words you want to use for it are. But
Mm-hmm.
but it brings you back to a root when all was in darkness, when all was not. You know, the creeping crawlies, the chaos, these things of nightmare that are hidden in our subconscious. That in the Necronomicon or elsewhere in the Book of Rely or wherever, where they talk about the stars hold them back. What they're talking about are things that have no place or being within light itself, that gave rise to instincts. And fear is an instinct. That is not something you just, it's not made. But all
Mm-hmm.
these things came from a thing that is real, you know. But when we look further back, when we look into the darkness, when we look into the void, into the places of not, into these primal roots, what we normally discover is that, everything is meant to die, everything is meant to decay, and it becomes, food for something else. But then at the same time, that thing that becomes food for something else is also reborn, retransformed, rechanged. You know, we're always looking back, that we're never looking forward. I think that's so funny in this day and age when you talk about authentic magic, when you're talking about, you got, when you have everybody on this fucking kick about, oh, I'm going to become a god, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or whatever the thing is, whatever it is, you got to remember the more attention and focus you put into something, it means you have not obtained it. You have literally just mind fucked yourself out of success. That's why it's good to sit there and say, I want to do this, or I'm working on this, and then let it go. Okay. But the more attention and focus that we put to the things that we either we desire, things we're trying to create, draw to us, or to rid ourselves of, when they say that where thought goes, energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of Frater X's sayings. Um, the thing about that is that there is a truth to that, and then you lie in what is known as two different realms. You have consciousness, and then you have conscience, which is like your being, your true being. And the true being is like literally left and right is not a thing. Good and evil, not a thing. Fluffy, dark, not a thing. It is just what it is. It can be a ravenous beast 1 minute, and it can be the warmest, glowing energy that you've ever felt that is healing the very next.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you ever want to know where you're at energetically, if you ever want to know, what's going on in your head, like let's say, for example, all our viewers out there. Now, I'm not saying all of you because I'm pretty sure a good bit of you know what's what and what's going on and so forth and so on in your magical world. But let's say, for example, that you're like, well, I've been a little busy here lately and I haven't had time to touch base with myself. How can I know where I'm at right now? Well, I would like to point out for anybody who has seen Sorsha's ritual area behind her in the past versus the one she has now. Those are always good examples of where a person's been, where a person is, and then you watch it and it changes and it becomes something else. Watch your own surroundings. If 1 minute you find, like behind me, man, there are blankets and pillows all over my couch, you know, and that's because of where I've got to sit and move and all this other stuff. But the rest of my house isn't like that, you know. My dishes are clean, so forth and so on. But and I'm using this just as an example of how to watch for yourself. How far out has your house gotten? You know, how disarrayed is your area that you live in? Are you always gone to work and you're so tired when you come home you don't have time to clean or put anything in order? How much time do you have to invest in yourself? Are you able to
Mhm.
have time to meditate and be calm and be happy and be okay with that? Uh, or are you always trying to run out to go get a pack of cigarettes or go get a six pack of beer because you just want to forget the day you had? And the next thing you know, you've had 4 or 5 drunk days. You know, pay attention to what's going on in your life because your surroundings will give tail to that. If you want to know what you're into magically, like, for example, and here's a really that weird thing is I've been asked a few weird questions just in the last 4 days by people on Facebook just messaging me. I just like out of nowhere, you know, just want to know how I'm doing, how'd this go, how'd that go, and all this other stuff. But then there's a few of them like that just come up with some like really weird questions, like how do I know what path is right for me? What are some good books? What gods would you suggest? So forth and so on. And I'm sitting there and I feel honored that anybody would fucking ask me my opinion. Because when you're talking about the occult and magic and mundane life, I'm filled with it. I make them one and the same. There's no difference in my world. So those things I do have opinions, those things I do have thoughts on. And my first thought is, well, first off, thank you for, actually thinking highly enough of me to ask me my opinion. But now let me resort to asking a question for a question instead of answering your question with an answer. What do you feel led to? What actually fucking makes you feel alive? Have you been feeling dark and sinister? Have you been feeling scared? Have you been feeling light and fluffy? Have you been feeling like you want to save the world? Because these are always signs and symbols of your own internal ebb and flow, your own internal wavelength, whatever you want to call it. And as far as books and stuff go like that, I'm just sitting there going like, well, what are you into? Just Google, the subject, and you can get a list of books. Or somebody's taking time to post this in a group or ask me a question, and I find out what kind of stuff they're into. If I know of any good books, I tell them, so forth and so on. But a lot of the times, a lot of the things that people want to know, if they would just stop for just literally 5 minutes, clear their mind, they could think, where is the source coming from? What's caused the question to arise in their mind? Because usually it means that it's something that they need. That's that internal self. It's like when you're hungry, your stomach will let you know, hey, it's time to go get something to eat. If nothing else, your blood pressure, your sugar does, something does. So forth and so on. It's like when I wake up, I know it's coffee time. Or you ain't gonna get shit out of me because I won't make any sense. But the thing is that take that time because that's your internal self telling you that you need something, and then the rest of it is just figuring out, okay, what do I feel like if I like there's this thing with people wanting to play with demons and so forth and so on. When you and I have had this conversation many times, uh, I think it's cool if somebody can get something constructive out of using the term demon. Pretty cool, if it's constructive. Uh, but a lot of the times, demons are just denser energy. They're just, they can be considered dark. They can be considered this. They can be considered that. They're just spirits of another vibration entirely. You know, they're usually, if you want to get things done real quick, they're usually the best to work with. They're also great for inducing gnosis. Well, then everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon of, well, what's EA putting out, or what's this person putting out, or this person putting out, or this person putting out. And, I find it interesting that as these people start bringing these things out, watch the egregore or the manifested thought form of that particular deity is what's actually drawing strength from people and awakening. And the universal consciousness that's like a
Mm-hmm.
bubble around the entire earth or all of creation, if you want to think of it in that sense. And and I think it's weird that, I used to like I'd be working with these spirits, and then all of a sudden I'd see somebody's making a great big deal about this particular spirit, and I'm going, oh, cool, that's how they're going to get talked about, so forth and so on. Because as they awaken, you know, they're feeding and they need this energy. And then they find somebody that needs information, and they're like, "Oh, I got a deal for you." It's kind of like a pack. And and then they sit down, and the next thing you know, we've got a book on Belial, got a book on Lucifer. Uh, everybody have an Abaddon or whatever. I don't know, and I'm not cracking on EA or anybody who follows this stuff. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm not being a dick about it. I'm just saying, if you will watch these things, it's no different than when I'm like, how do you know what you're supposed to be working with? What do you feel personally attracted to? Not because you see it all over Facebook, not because every time you go to YouTube, there's somebody's new video up. What have you, when you separated yourself from the masses, what have you honestly felt attracted to, attached to?
That's
Go ahead.
I was just saying, that's the thing is like, what do you feel drawn to? That's the big thing because I see all these trends in different, places. And again, like, hey, I'm not ribbing anybody. I have a lot of respect for a lot of, different groups, different people putting out things, like I'm not, but I'm just saying like, a lot of people get so hung up on, oh, well, now, like they're looking to other people to guide them through this process. They're like, well, okay, if this person is kind of like, the go-to expert on this type of a system or demon, okay, we're going to put out this, and this is the order we do it in. And, there might be like a reason for that, but I feel like people rely too much on other people to like guide them, to lead them, to say, well, what's we doing? Well, figure it out yourself, dude. Go out there and interact with the spirits yourself, man. What do you feel drawn to? you know don't feel like you can't work with a spirit just because you haven't worked with like the preceding three that were in the series. It's like, no, dude, go where you feel drawn, go where you feel like that you connect, and connect in your own way. And you know what, you may not find it in any fucking grimoires can be valuable, like in a way, like it can inspire you, but that's just it. It's supposed to be inspiration. It kind of give you ideas, it can give you things to work with, but ultimately, we connect with the spirits ourselves. And that's where your gnosis should really be coming from spirits that you're working with, by yourself, like authentically, or your own gnosis. It comes to you from, the universe, your higher self, whatever that is, the spirits that you might choose to work with. But, like that to me is more authentic than filling your head with things from grimoires. I mean, I have a shelf. I have like a magical library. I mean, I love me some books. Don't get me wrong. I buy books. I love all kinds of magical books. I have a ton of them. And I treasure them. I plan on, writing books. So of course I want you to like, buy my book and read it when it comes out. So, as an author, but it's
Oh,
not because like,
you want me to buy and read your book? Well, that's funny. I'm gonna beat you to it, and I'm gonna buy it and read it just because I want.
but that's the thing. It's like, does it resonate with you? Does it inspire you? Does it, you know, and it's like, what? It may not be for everyone. If you put something out in a book, it may not be for everybody, but it's like you put your heart, your soul, your gnosis, your thoughts, you put it on paper, you get it out here, and hey, this is what it did for me. This was my understanding. Other people can take that and run with it and do their own thing, or it can kind of give them some tools and some ideas that can help them. And you know what? If that's what happens, then I feel like I've done my job, with that book. But I feel like people sometimes rely too much on books, too much on other practitioners to set the pace, to set the tone, and really like we should all be out here together, just like doing our things, being inspired by and with each other, supporting each other, but not necessarily following, you know, to the point that you don't have any kind of sense of direction. It's like if they don't move, you don't move. No, you should be always moving forward. And then, your paths cross with people, with books, with tools and resources. It comes when you need it. You can take the best and leave the rest, you know, but don't be afraid to move, you know, and it may feel like you're walking in the dark blindly sometimes, but take the fucking steps, man, because then it's like the path will be made clear but you have to take steps sometimes. So I feel like that's just something, worth pondering, because that's what I see out here. I see people that just, you know, they sincerely want to learn things. They sincerely want to connect and do magic, but they rely so much on, like, they wait for other people to inspire them or set the tone, instead of going out and taking the reins with the spirits directly, and then trusting, that gnosis is solid, it's authentic to them.
It's like, and I'm probably gonna step in a big pile of shit with this next part I'm about to say. No, there's this thing about the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is the water bearer. If I had $1 for every motherfucker I've heard tell me that that's the age of Lucifer, and I'm sitting there going, no, you have the light bringer, and the water bearer, according to one of my systems that I work with, and one of the deities is Enki, master magicians. And I've heard people, equate him to Lucifer, and I personally, I don't see it, but if that's where people get their connection, once again, what you're sitting there and you're talking about with the whole, it's cool to have books and to read into them and stuff like this, but don't be relying on them, well, my gnosis and my understanding is that, it's an age of an emotional awakening, of the primal powers coming forth in mankind. And if you pay attention to
Yes.
what's going on in the magical occult community, you can tell real quickly it may be being guided by a supreme intelligence, but it is definitely a water-based thing. I mean, you can tell that primalness swelling up, and that's where it's coming from. And that's where I base my conclusions on that, instead of what everybody else would say about it. Uh, which doesn't matter what I believe; it matters what each and everybody else believes. But I was using that as an example. I think one of the cool things is that we're in a day where all these great books being put out. It is an age of inspiration. Some of these books are giving people the breakthrough that they needed to get through certain things, and so it's showing up at a time when it needs to. And the weird thing is that it being like that, and then I turn around and, like, literally, I know a few authors who have kindly, uh, emailed me sections or parts of their books or stuff to read over, and I'm just sitting there going, wow, holy shit, I mean, the amount of knowledge that's just being put out there right now is astounding, and I hope it doesn't stop, and I hope it doesn't end, you know. Uh, it's like, for example, earlier when we were talking about, with all these deities and things, one of the things that Thorne was sitting there and he was saying, and he was explaining about it's a fad, but sometimes it's also about the spirit trying to, get its message out there, all this other stuff. And I want to touch on that. And it's not that I'm just pinpointing my boy Thorne there, because I've been reading this chat, and I'm going to tell you what, I want to say thank you to each and every single one of you for being here tonight. And I've read this. You guys are like dead on, and I appreciate you interacting. Forgive us for not, stopping and, saying something at each point. But I've been reading this, and just I'm amazed at this. But back to what I was saying though. It's like with Thorne. He runs his channel, and he'll sit there and he'll talk about the different spirits that he's working with and stuff, and it's amazing how dead on it is. And I've noticed that he can do this thing, and it's like he gets a jump start on some of them, because it's like he makes a video, and then the next thing I know, and it's not because people are watching his video, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go make one. You can tell it's not like that, but I always thought the synchronicity was fucking entertaining as hell. One of the things that you think of when you think of inspiration, and this is going to come back to the book that you've got that you're going to be putting out. This poetry and prose and stuff. One of the reasons I'm excited, and I honestly, I know you're having to do it perfectly and you're having to get this all put together. But one of the reasons why I can't wait is because you got to think, I sent you a book that, there are no seals or sigils for these spirits. Just this cute little meditation, just, four simple sentences. And the next thing you know, you're seeing the spirit and you're like, wow, and I didn't have to visualize on a sigil. Uh, Writing, true writing, magical writing. And this all ties into the authentic magic subject. Authentic magic transforms, transmutes, and changes. Whoever looks upon it, hears it, senses it, feels it, so forth and so on. Inside our area of experience. Um, and I think that with so many people doing so many workings, uh, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm astounded. I sit at the base of this, and I'm like, I've been working on a book for 2 years, and and I'm supposed to be putting this together and everything else, and I had to stop because of the surgery and recovery and all this other stuff. And over the last week, the only thing I've come up with is how much original stuff is going to be put in the book that I'm working on versus stuff that you find in regular run of the mill books or grimoires, because it's supposed to act as a standalone of how to empower you. Just using simple tools, everything from making them yourself to everything else, to what force or power to tap into to be able to connect the energy to create with it. Well, that's one way of creating. And you got poetry of the void. Seriously? I mean, can you imagine the power of that?
Oh, I mean, no, it's the book is not a book of poetry of the void. It's still echoes from the void. It's about like the experience. So it is, it does have rituals. Like there is kind of like the chapters that I put up just happen to have some poetry in it, but it's not like a book of poetry at all.
Oh, no, no, I
Um,
didn't mean it like that. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. No, uh, I'm a romantic at heart. Uh,
ah,
I wax poetic bigger than fuck with my own chants and spells that I create and I make. And I love reading people's writing
mm,
because it gives an idea of where they are in their heart, of where they are in their mind, of what, you know, frequency that their soul's at. And I call that poetry. I don't care if
okay.
it was just a book of seals or sigils. You know, as soon as you go to draw it, the first thing that always happens, everybody always thinks that, like in the thing of creating sigils and stuff, there's this whole thing about how, oh, it's charged with your intent. Here's the funny thing. There is nothing new underneath the sun. There's nothing that has never been thought, has never been felt. There's nothing new. It's always been there. And therefore that force already lies there. So even when you're creating a sigil, just it's not from your act of channeling your intent into it while you drew it, but the actual seal itself actually has its own emotional energy, its own life force. And just looking at it, you become attached to it. You know what I'm saying? Does that make any sense?
I think so. Like, yeah, like there's certain, sometimes seals, like, I mean, if there's already given seals or if it's, like what I'm making, like there is already kind of like, meaning there. I feel some sort of a connection with it, even before it's sometimes completed. Um, Sometimes sigils just, come to me. Like I see things all my time, like all the time. Like I get really like when I'm meditating, I'll see really complex, geometric shapes take form in different configurations. And then I just know that somehow they need to become like a sigil. Um, and I have to kind of figure out like what they're for, what their purpose is, as I go sometimes. Um, but yeah, I do feel like there's an energy about them. So
Yeah. You know, um, I am drawing a blank for some reason. I have no idea why. Um, but on the subject of authentic magic, uh, with everything that we've said here and we've discussed, I think that one of the more important aspects comes from, what do we do with it? And that's something I would ask you. What do you do with it? You know your authentic self, your true self or whatever. You know what you're about. What do you do with it? I mean, how do you just how do you decide? Maybe not decide is not the good word, but you know what I'm saying. How do you piece it together?
How do I what?
How do you piece it together? How do you decide what's authentic, what's not, what stays, what goes?
It changes sometimes. Like, if I look at like the evolution of, even my altars, my ritual space, it's changed so much from the first time I put one up, radically, radically changed, the types of materials I use, like if it's like, physically, talking about like tools and things change. But when it comes to, like the magic itself, it's like I go with what feels right to me, at the time. And I go with what's practical, what works for me. Um, I don't know how to like explain it so well, maybe, but um, I just, I learn by experience, and then I tend to go with what works for me. And um, like when I do the rituals that I offer for hire, I've developed each one, through trial and error, through tweaking them, refining them, making them like, okay, this works. This is my current understanding, and these rituals represent my current understanding. Each ritual I have out there is kind of like it distills the essence of something that I'm trying to like do, convey, offer, you know, help people change. And it's like as I evolve, I'm sure the rituals will evolve further. There will be more that I can add. There will be more that I can like do with them. Um, but they get really good results, right now. And I'm sure it'll just, get better with time, like a fine wine. Um, you know, so I just kind of go with what works. And if something just doesn't feel right, then I might need to like adjust it, move it, remove it. Um, Whatever that is. Um, I don't necessarily have like a set system on how I decide that. It's just everything is kind of spontaneous. But I have like a set pattern of things that I do, like for my rituals, or certain things that like right now seem to be immutable that are like, hey, this works, this is proven for me. So I'm gonna just like go with it until something else, you know, needs to be added.
Yeah. With for myself, when it comes to anything that I do, it's authentic. There's parts that I'll take from this book, I'll take from that book, I'll take from this system and that system, uh, and I'll make it my own. I'll shape it and change it. I don't like the way it's worded. I'll reword it to a way that evokes an emotional response from myself, to where it does work for me in ritual or spell work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when I do that, I notice that, no matter what system I'm taking it from or anything else, I notice that as long as it has the desired effect and it works, I run with it. I don't sit around questioning whether it will or it won't. Now, some things are a little bit more tedious and deconstructing than, for personal use. Uh, Especially like when it tells you certain things out of certain systems, and all of a sudden, you have to learn which ones are the important symbols to keep. So to keep the energy signature the same, so that so you're connecting and contacting the right thing. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. Uh, but authentic to me is no matter what you're doing. Uh, I don't care if you picked up Scott Cunningham's Wicca book. It's either Wicca or Wicca for Beginners. That's probably both. I don't know. I know he wrote like two or three of them. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't care what you got. If you got something out of it that worked, whether it was a meditation, whether it was a chant for prosperity, or whatever, if it worked for you and you knew and you know how to make it work, put it in your book of shadows, your grimoire, whatever your notes are called, what you're going to be pulling from, so forth and so on, and just keep working with it and just keep adding to it. You know, uh, there are so many people out there this day and age, man. They want to say that unless you've wrote 20 books or you have 30,000 followers or blah blah blah, that you're not reputable. And yet I have read works that are just as powerful, just as effective by somebody who never plans on writing a book. It just came out of their book shadows that they came up with, you know. And the fact that they were willing to share it with me was, fucking epic as shit. And then, of course, I also have a rule of thumb. If you share something that's sacred to me, I'm going to share something that's sacred with you. It's just a law of return in that sense. But that's that. Well, it's not really a law of return. It's just, for me, it's a balance, you know. And that is a cigarette, not a joint. But blaze up if you got one. Knock yourself out. Sorry. But the thing is that no matter what you're doing, you've got to find your balance. You know, for example, someone shares a book that they're writing. They can trust me all day long, but I also understand what it's like to feel like somebody could steal your shit anyway. Have a bad hair day or whatever. And so if there's something personal that I'm working on, I'll send them a rough draft copy of what I've got. That way it's kind of a tit for tat. It's that MAD, that whole mutually assured destruction or whatever you want to call it. Make sure that both sides have handguns or hand grenades. you know, and usually it doesn't come down to something like that. Sometimes if you know the right people, it's not even like that. Sometimes it's just they trust you, and you're just you're doing your thing. Uh, but like for example, uh, like Frank Hutter on here, Francis Hutter, Prater Nabo, I call him. Earlier he was sitting there and and he was saying he has like 5 systems he works with. I have no doubt of that. Lots of people have different systems that they work. I myself have a major system that I work with, the Simon Necronomicon. And a lot of people, they wouldn't be able to get half the shit to work that I do out of it. And then it's not because I'm some follower of the elder gods or the ancient ones or anything like that, but it's because I understand how to make it work. I understand how it works, you know, and some of it's just doing the work itself and connecting with it and making it an actual part of your belief system. Because that's a lot of how you make magic work for you, and this is how you empower your authentic magic. This is how, uh, like I used to do a chant every night before I went to bed. Uh, when I wake up, I will know the magic that is mine, or something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just keep doing this and doing this and doing this. And there'd be times I'd get no answer, no response, months at a time. I'd work everything from different colored candles, different intents, so forth and so on. Maybe invoke a spirit and then start it, or whatever it took to get it to do. And finally, one day, instead of trying to go to sleep and allow my subconscious to fill in the blanks for me, one day I decided, you know what? No, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna light a candle, and as I light the candle, it's going to dissolve everything I know, so that there's nothing in the way. And then I'm going to allow the knowledge that is already within me to come to the surface. And that actually worked better than anything I'd ever tried. Uh,
Nice.
you'd be amazed. I don't know if you'd call it incarnations, anything like that. Certainly, there are people more skillful than others. There are some who have been doing this a lot longer. There are some who have just as equal results. Somebody's been doing it 25 years, for their 1 year. Yeah, I mean, it's just that crazy. It works like that. But the reason why it does isn't because there's some grand mystical Pumbaa. It's because, you know, their intent is to be everything that they can be, and they don't let anything hold them back. And see, and that's the key to authentic magic, and that's the key to understanding, magic that's, that is your own magic. Because you can read all the books in the world, you can have that knowledge all floating in your head, but do you have the skill or the capability to make it work? You know,
Exactly. That's the thing, it's like I love knowledge. I love learning things. I have, a lot of things that I ponder and take in. But at the end of the day, what really works? What can I do with it? Rather than just, it's the applied knowledge. It's the applied knowledge. It's usable knowledge. So it doesn't just stay locked in the vault in the head. It's like how are you walking it out in life? What does that actually look like? You know, and for me that's kind of what makes it more authentic is how can I use this in real time today? Boom, go. And then, see what really does work. And, there are things that maybe might take time to learn to work effectively sometimes because, we have to bring our skill level up to where then we can like, you know, wield it more effectively. And sometimes we have to learn more. Sometimes we have to prepare more. Sometimes we just have to get to a certain point and then things open up. But I think being able to, practically apply that rather than just keeping it in the realm of theory, thought, and knowledge is what makes it, more authentic to the person
yeah.
using it.
Well, I know that this was in authentic magic, but now I'd like to bring up a second subject, a subject that secretly I wanted to go over uh, for part two to this. Uh, so I'm gonna sneak this one in there on you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the first one was on authentic magic. So here's the next part. Uh, so for the last week, like I said, I've been doing a lot of workings and a lot of really weird stuff's been happening and changing. I was sitting there and I was thinking about, all the different magical systems I know and how this works and that works and so forth and so on. And I can sit down and I can get something to work. And then sometimes, just shit for all happens, you know, for whatever reason. I have no idea what makes magic fizzle when you've got all the correspondences right, when you're in the right headspace. Shit just sometimes it don't pop off. Sometimes you just get no result for whatever reason. But here's the thing. Here's what I want to ask: which is more powerful? Something that somebody else wrote, or something that you yourself wrote?
Something that you yourself wrote, hands down. Um, I think that, I mean, I've used things that other people have written, and I've either tried it as written or I like adjusted it to kind of you know work a little for me. But I find for me, writing things myself because it comes from the heart. It has to come from the heart because the universe responds to what you feel more than what you think or profess or say. It it really is about heart. Magic is a in the realm of heart, and will. And that's how you feel about something is really what you resonate with, which is what the universe responds to. Um, and being able to then articulate. I mean, there are people that, have written things that are like very articulate and sometimes that is like the perfect thing. And if that is the case, then that will be a powerful thing. But ultimately, the most powerful magic comes from within. And that could include writing your own rituals, writing your own things. It has to be meaningful. It can be very simple. It doesn't have to be fancy. Um but I'm in the opinion that it's the self
Yeah.
originating, that is the more powerful for each person.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because I've done everything from shamanism uh, to, well, three different types of shamanism, uh, to ritual magic, uh, high magic, uh, meditation, visualization, all the different skills and so forth and so on. And I have practiced from a shit ton of belief systems and structures, everything from original Goetia to Solomonic magic, so forth and so on, Enochi and the whole nine yards. Do you know what I honestly got from every bit of it?
Hmm.
How to create my own motherfucking system. Because once you understand the rules of why it works, how it
Mhm.
works, then it's all down to you can create your own shit. But you have to have actual working knowledge. You have to actually, do the ritual working, so forth and so on, so that you have an idea, so forth and so on. The thing is, though, is that, that as I was doing this, meanwhile, I had been collecting bits and pieces that had been coming through, through gnosis and stuff. And then, 2 decades later, I'm able to sit there and literally sit there and just create my own system. Uh, and it was important it was important after a while that it not be a system that worked just for me, but something that no matter what your belief system is, that it came across as neutral as fuck, so that you could fill it in with your own personal deities, your own personal uh, power sources, so forth and so on. Your own belief structure could be implemented into it. And, a lot of what I do, I try to make it universal. And the reason why I do is because it does no good for me to give somebody a rite or a ritual that works for me and it not work for them. But you give it to them, and like they're bypassing the whole 20 years of experience of having to know how to do it. Uh, and if you're skillful enough, you can actually, you can be like, you can omit these words here, fill it in with your own, and it'll become more powerful. For whatever spirit you want here, but it has to be underneath such and such. Like if it was a death current or a life current, or just whatever, uh, so forth and so on. And that's why I was asking, which one do you think is more powerful? And it's not because I have a question of which one's more powerful, but it's because, there are a lot of people out there, they'll look at other people's works. And the first thing they do is they sit there and they'll judge their own works as being unworthy or not good enough, and that's sad. I hate to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, magic is such an intimate part of ourselves. It can be, and, there's different parts that we share with other people and there's parts that we keep private, just like, our own selves. We don't share all of ourselves with everybody out here, but like, it's such a personal thing and it's like a heartbreaking thing. Like, it's like a little kid, like thinking that, like it's not good enough. They're not good enough, no, you absolutely are good enough. You have to just own it and be comfortable and trust that. And there's a lot of reasons why people are conditioned to feel that way. Um, but as those layers shed and as people start like waking up to who and what they are and realizing that they have such tremendous potential, they wouldn't doubt themselves as much. They would realize that, that they are powerful creatures and that, you know, they have just, they're your thoughts, your ideas are just as valid as anybody else's on this planet. Your ideas, the way that you approach magic, you know, it should be like valued in your own mind. And then, like as you practice it, if something doesn't work, then okay, adjust it and tweak it and refine it. But don't just think that because, you're not published, you're not out here, in a professional capacity that it doesn't have value, you know, or that you have to get some sort of permission to do it for it to have value. Um, just trust that it has value, trust that it will work, trust that it is already working. It's just a matter of the operator recognizing it and physical reality to catch up to the shifts that are already in place.
Yeah. It's like one oh, so in high magic and ritual magic, you have all this you're supposed to have all these lamens and jewelry and scepter. You're supposed to have all this big fancy expensive shit. Yeah, if I had a dollar, no, if I had a quarter for every time that I've taken a marker or a pen to my skin and drawn symbols over certain areas, so forth and so on, to do the rites with, and then work out, I'd have some money, uh, because there are a lot of people out there. I swear, man, they let the fact whether they've got the tools or not fucking stop them, and I'm like, holy shit! At some
It's like you're
point,
missing the whole fucking point of magic if you're willing to just not do it because, oh my god, I don't have my almond wand, I don't have my exactly measured ritual table of these, ceremonial systems, which, to me is tiresome, tired, and, you know, I don't, okay, that I do some Enochian stuff. Do I have an Enochian temple, like in the traditional sense? No, I do not. Um, I don't have any of those tools that I work with. I mean, like because I don't need them. They're actually not needed. It's like there is some benefit in doing some traditional things just because it like sets certain energy patterns in motion that are conducive to that type of work. However, you know, it's not like you're going to not get results if you don't have the tools. Okay. The tools are the props, the tools are just that. They are tools, but it is the magic that comes from within. You know, I think that people get in their own way when they get so wrapped up in the trinkets, the tools, the smoke and the mirrors of it all. Um, you know, you can sit there and do full fucking evocation, sitting here quietly with nothing. Spirits come. Matt, you can do an entire ritual in your head and get results. Now, personally, like I know that, and I have done that, but I also like to externalize it. I love, I like my ritual space because it just kind of sets a mood, it sets a tone. But like too bad, so sad. If I didn't have a certain tool, it's not going to be like, oh, I'm not going to do magic. No, boom, you don't have it. Do magic anyway. Adapt. Make it work. Um, I think that that's something to keep in mind. But a lot of people do like let the fact that maybe they don't have the perceived tools or the things that they think that they need. Maybe they're putting too much value on those things and not enough on their own will.
yeah, it's probably a myriad of things. There's Ethan Ross. He says I can't see a damn thing in any scrying surface. I read that, and the first thing I did was laugh because a couple of weeks back, I was doing a working out of the Queen of Hell by Mark Allen Smith, and and one of them is you got to use a scrying spear. Well, I have a black bowl that I use water in because it's the perfect scrying tool, and I have black mirrors and I can use them, so forth. But I've never been good at using, scrying spears or whatever they're called. Uh, and it was funny because I'm sitting there in the middle of this calling, and I am sitting there and I am just like, trying so hard to like, I've seen the sigil of this being, and I'm sitting there, just trying to project it into this crystal. And I'm like, is my crystal broken? What the fuck, you know? And then all of a sudden, I just had this feeling of just relax. You're not going to see it in the crystal, and that's what it blew my fucking mind. Is that just as soon as I let that concept go of where I'm supposed to see it, I see it in my mind's eye, and then all of a sudden I could see it in the surface, and I was like, "What the fuck?" You know?
That's how it can happen. When you you know drop the need to like have to be attached to doing it a certain way, or when we like release expectation and just let it happen however it happens. I think that can be a more beneficial way to go about it. Um, if I go into ritual like for a physical evocation, and if I'm expecting a demon to show up in my space, you know, as I'm talking to somebody like a human, face to face, tangible, I can touch you, I can, like I don't expect that. But I do expect like, that thing, I don't require them to like, move shit around or play in the smoke. They just tend to do it anyway. It just manifests that way. But it's like I don't have to see it, but it's like I don't know, I just expect like little things that might, or the feeling that density in the air, like I can feel things shifting, you know. But I think if you go into especially as a newer magician, like if people come in just starting magic, they expect a demon to just pop in and be like a physical thing, like they think that they're failing at their evocation just because it didn't manifest that way. And it's like, well, adjust your expectation. That's not really how I've not quite seen it work like that, but I get results, but it's not always like a big showy physical thing. So learning how to like adjust your expectations to where, you know, it leaves more room for possibility. Um, and then see what happens. I think people will, could get that success and recognize their successes, because they think that they failed at something because it didn't appear a certain way. But when you like kind of like let go of needing it to be a certain way, then you're going to find your success. And then success begets success. You'll get better at it. You'll get more sure of yourself in these endeavors. Um, but yeah, I think just kind of being mindful of expectation. Um,
Yeah.
Something to
It's
consider.
it's like in my apartment here. One night I got a little bit worried because I went and I ordered the triangle of Trinities, Trinity of Triangles by Espen Kane. And I had been looking forward to this for years. I've been wanting it. I finally had the money up and I got it. And it came in and I was like, blown away. And I'm like, yeah, I've got this now because, you know, everybody, they want to go for the triangle with the black mirror and they see it flat. It's 1D. And so when they go and they make these things, they don't realize the mirror's not attached to it. It's actually on a stand holding it up, and the triangle is flat. And it's got the names and stuff. Well, for me, I work with so many different spirits. I don't need certain names around it to harness its energies. So Kane's version of the Trinity of Triangles was perfect. It works from everything from working Necronomicon to Goetic spirits to chthonic forms to whatever. I mean, just whatever you would possibly want to use a triangle for, it's perfect for it. And
Mhm.
so I'm sitting there and I've got this thing set up and I like and I had done a few of the workings beforehand without the Trinity. Uh, and the smoke, from the incense and stuff, it didn't get that bad. Well, the one night I like broke out the triangle, I set it up, man. The first thing I went to realizing was like, holy shit, my house is like filling up with smoke, so I'm like having to hurry up and open up doors, try to dim it down, because I mean, like smoke alarms at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's not good, man. You're gonna,
Mhm.
because you got neighbors on both sides, so that's just bad shit. You don't want to have to deal with that. But I tell this story because it's actually funny that that previous to me doing this, I went to realizing that the smoke seemed to be building a body.
Mm.
Well, I don't record rituals. Not that I'll never do it or anything like that, but it's something I don't do. Um, stuff like that. Like you won't catch me doing a ritual, and I'm like, oh, I want to do a ritual live. I'm gonna record it while I'm doing it. No, I ain't quite got to where I would do something like that. But it was the one time that I wished I had a camera going so that I could at least, go back to it because I remember that I had no fixed ideas or thoughts that how this would work. I open minded. I'm just gonna wait and see what happens. And I had traced it with my mind's eye and and my finger just tracing the energy of the triangles, you know, and I was harnessing them at each one of the points for each of the trinity of the spirits I was working with. And then I was, the one spirit that I'm calling, dead center, that's part of the trinity. And all of a sudden, you could feel it. You could feel the energy just like got sucked into this area, and all of a sudden the smoke was staying in the triangle, and it was just getting thicker and bigger. And I'm sitting there like, oh shit, if that gets loose, I'm not worried about, when I say loose, I'm not talking about a spirit getting loose, because I'm not worried about that. I'm just thinking, the smoke, it was so crazy how it was sticking over one area and was trying to build a form out of it. I was sitting there like, holy shit, the one time I'm not actually trying to evoke the physical manifestation, it actually starts happening.
And that's the thing with the Trinity of Triangles. I do have like a Trinity of Triangles. I have the ritual mat, and then I have the Triangle of Eternal Invocation. For
I
my
really
amulet.
want one of those.
And I mean, I wear those like all the time. Like it hardly ever comes off. It's also the only jewelry I wear. I don't wear other jewelry. Like I like other things. I just, I'm so busy with my hands. I can't, um, yeah. So I'm very, I don't wear a lot of jewelry. Um, but like, yeah, no, the Trinity of Triangles though, like that is an intense device. I mean, it's, Espen Kane is brilliant when it comes to like, I mean, magical things, authoring books. I mean, he knows his stuff. And, you know, he's very inspired and like with his sigils just all of the ones he's done like in Book of Smokeless Fire. I love those sigils too. All of his sigils that he's done are really interesting. The lunate script is really intriguing too. um but just it's like he has a really good understanding of like the geometry of things and the energy of the geometries and like how energy responds to particular angles, and he talks about it in his books. But the Trinity of Triangles is really good at it. Really creates a very potent doorway that is obviously applicable to any kind of system. It's compatible with so many things, of course. um with anything, Lovecraftian, as well. It's very suited for that too, because of, what it was released with. But I've used it for like every kind of magic you can imagine. I've used it successfully. It really does change the energy in a room. Just having it on the wall in a room, it charges, it changes, it, it adjusts the energy and makes it flow a little bit differently. Um, and it really kind of does have that feeling of you know kind of the Twilight Realms, the places in between. It always just kind of feels like that to me. At least that's how I perceive it.
Yeah.
um and so it's interesting, like how we like give meanings to tools, but some things, regardless of our meanings, seem to just do things on their own, even when you're not like focusing on them, even when you're not in ritual. They just do things. And I definitely have some theories and ideas on that like that'll be another day, another chat. Um, but yeah, like I encourage people to kind of like play with it, play with like the difference like when you're starting to play with geometry, you have like sacred geometry, you have all these different overlap in system and knowledge, and how it can just kind of assist what you're doing. But yeah, the Trinity of Triangles is a
Yeah.
pretty spectacular device.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You talk about geometry in Thelema. Okay, so you got the hexagram, which is just a 6 point star. In Thelema, they make use of the universal hexagram, which is how you draw the 6 point star without, with
Hmm.
all the lines connecting. And it's just
Yeah.
two lightning bolts.
Hmm.
You know, uh, that was my introduction to working with geometric figures outside of ritual settings. Uh, Now, I mean, it was used in ritual settings, but not the same way. You know, like when you draw when you draw your circle and you create an 8-point star in the center, or a 7-point star, or just whatever star you're working with. But the universal hexagram isn't used on the ground like a star setting. It's actually used to connect over the astral self. So it has head, right hip, left shoulder, groin, right shoulder, hip, left hip, above the head. So and then you would do the 5-point star and so forth and so on. Behold, I'm the 5-rated star. Within me shines the 6-rated star of splendor, so forth and so on. Well, the last, what was the blood moon that we just had? Is rather interesting. I'll tell the story. So I had my, triangle, my trinity of the triangles, and I thought, I'm gonna have this thing outside, out back, underneath the moon. And I was summoning a form of Lucifer that I'd never heard of, one that they use out of the Queen of Hell. And I had read on it, seemed pretty solid, so forth and so on. So I go outside under the under the blood moon and doing this, doing that blood moon eclipse. And I will say this, that was powerful. That was some really, really weird shit. I mean, it could have been any spirit, but the point being is that, whether it's the power of the moon itself, whether it's the intent of the sorcerer, sorceress, whatever, or whether it's a symbol. The thing about it is that when you combine all these elements and you do something like that, and you have a reaction, that's that strong. I mean, it's nothing shy of impressive. I mean, the things that impress me are usually things that most people go, oh yeah, that's such and such, and I'm like, well, I'm still tickled to death. 2-3 years later, I'm still playing with it. Because never got bored with it. I always find something new to tinker with using it. And I got a feeling that's going to be one of those things. But for just posterity's sake, like I used to use just a regular triangle and change up the names as necessary, so forth and so on. Sometimes writing on the inside of the points, so forth and so on. But man, I've had a lot of really cool, effects from it. And there have been times when, honestly, when they talk about like in Michael W. Ford's works, there's this thing where you devour demons or the gods or whatever. You eat your gods, all this other stuff. I'll never forget. It was about a year and a half ago. I was laying there in bed, and the room took on a truly sinister, feeling, and I just felt, all of a sudden I felt like, something's trying to, hammer down on me. It's trying to cause extreme fear, paranoia. As soon as I got up out of bed, all of a sudden the concept of what the triangle of the beast represents, of devouring and everything else. It's one thing to read it. It's another thing altogether to understand how to do it, how it's done, so forth and so on. And it's kind of like steotas of summoning, and they talk about, you're supposed to, make it, tight like a spring, so that when it's released, you know how strong or weak you are, whether you can handle the energy's release, which is what his Trinity of the Triangles does. Is it harnesses the energy, it bends them and holds it. But when I got out of bed, I remember all of a sudden understanding, how to devour. And for the first time, and you would think that after 23 years that I'd know how it's done. But hell, I still learn things, that I might known how, but actual application of making it happen, is a whole other story. And got up and, and I've devoured gods in ritual settings, so forth and so on, to take on their attributes and so forth and so on, because this is part of, of developing the inner god or goddess.
Hmm.
the becoming a god or whatever the term or word is that everybody wants to use for it. You know, but this was a straight up attack. You know, and all of a sudden devouring the thing. I mean, that kind of blew my mind. And then when I was, like I said, then working with this Trinity of the Triangles, I realized that this takes things that normally would not manifest under any circumstance and actually gives it the right atmosphere by which it can. And that
Yeah.
I I may have thought that that was a powerful symbol and that I had to have it, but when I got it and I actually got to play with it, that's when I was sitting there going, "Oh yeah, this is where it's at."
Yeah, it's pretty intense, definitely. But no, it's definitely been I think that we've had a lot of good, good interaction, good chatting with people here. I actually have to kind of get going here pretty soon, but this has been fun. This has been
Yeah,
fun. It's always awesome popping on and spending time with you
yeah,
and seeing what comes out, man, and seeing who comes out. It's
yeah.
been a good one.
I don't know, right? Well, sis, I do appreciate you coming out here and doing this with us tonight. And it's getting to close to a 2 hour mark anyway, so this is good. Uh, but for each of you out there, peace, blessings, and power. I really do appreciate every single one of y'all coming out. I appreciate you, typing in and and so forth and so on. I'm apologize if I didn't, scroll up and go through all this stuff. You know, forgive me on that one, but thank you for being here. And you can bet that I'm gonna go back and like actually scroll up and read it and stuff. So I want to wish each and every single one of you an awesome night. I hope I appreciate you sticking around this long. Hope you got something out of it. And it's good to see each and every single one of you here. And it's good to know that I can go away for 3 weeks, come back, and people still show up, even if it is for short shit. No, I'm just kidding. I love you
No,
guys.
no, no, they're happy to see you, man. I know everyone's kind of been wondering how you've been doing, and I know that we're all happy that you are back in fine form out here, ready to rock it again. So,
Yeah.
it's been fun, and I'm glad you're back.
Oh yeah. But but with that being said and done, just remember, y'all. Authentic magic. It's all about just being an authentic you, being the real you, being the you decide to be, doing it the way you want to do it, how you want to do it, and fuck what anybody else says, thinks, feels about it. It's your life. You've got to live it, not them.
Hell yeah.
It's my magic, and I want it now. Oh yeah. Oh wait, you get paid for that? All right.
Oh man.
But anyway, I'm gonna leave that hanging there. Peace, blessings, and power. Till next time.
See you guys.